Welcome to Easy Peasy Stamping and Crafting first tutorial video. And I am Tammy Twitchell, independent Stampin' Up demonstrator, and I'm excited to share with you why you should use the new Stampin' Blends marker. Now, it's been about 25-30 years since I've had an art class, and so as I was working on my blend projects and stamping projects with my daughter, I realized my skills were lacking, so we decided to create this line of tutorials to help you get the most out of your money and your investment, and to show not only how to use the blends, but how you can incorporate the watercolor pencils and the other Stampin' Right markers too. Each has their purpose. So here we go, Shayla.
Hello. So, as you can see from the title page, we're going to be discussing why you should even bother with the Stampin' Blends. I mean, you probably took one look at the price and went, no. I know that's kind of what my reaction was when I first wanted to get into Copics. But the thing is that the Stampin' Rights are very different from these new Stampin' Blends. And the main reason for that is because the Stampin' Rights have water-based ink, whereas the Stampin' Blends have alcohol-based ink. And so, over here already, I showed a little bit of how the markers differ. And if you notice with the Stampin' Rights, if you try to use them like how you would use the Stampin' Blends, they tear up the paper and they get down on color. It comes down a lot darker than it would. And it also just doesn't blend well. And right here, I demonstrated what the color lifter does, because a lot of people think that it will help erase their mistakes. But the thing is that that is not a good use for it, because what it does is it spreads the pigment. That's how the marker works. But this can be used to get good effects. It's just not what you want to use to correct your mistakes. And so I'm going to be showing you now on this flower what you can do with the color lifter as well as the watercolor pencils. And so now you can just put the marker on plain like this and just have the color pencils for shadows. That gives a really nice look already, because you have that contrast between the textured color pencil and the smooth marker. But another thing you can do is you can take the color lifter, and what it will do is, like I said before, its job is to spread pigment, and that works with color pencil too. It breaks down the pigment and it spreads it around. So you can use it with the color pencil and it can soften it up and give a very soft marker look to it, even though the shadow used was color pencil. And then all you have to do is just keep drawing until the pigment comes out. Now, the tip will likely still be stained, but that isn't what's important. As long as it doesn't color with the previous ink used, that's all that matters. And now, another thing I'm going to do here is show how you can use very unusual colors in your shading. And now this is a principle that many artists know about. You don't usually use just gray or just a darker shade of one color to shade. And part of that is what I found with these Stampin' Blends is that just the lighter and darker version of the colors were not enough to get a good level of contrast between light and dark shadows. If anything, depending on the marker, some of them actually look almost the same once you put them down next to each other. And part of that is also because it will look a bit darker when you first put it down, but markers will always dry just a tad bit lighter. And so what I'm going to do with these pink pirouettes is I'm going to use this dark crumb cake to shadow. And now this might seem really weird at first. I mean, why would you use such a dark brown with such a pale pink? It doesn't really make a lot of sense at first, does it? Well, at first it might not make a whole lot of sense. But, like I said before, these markers blend really well. So you can go back with your lighter color and soften the effects of this brown, so it's not so stark. And that will give you a really nice look. Because if you look closely, the brown actually goes really well with the pink, and it gives it a really interesting pop. And that's one of the cool things about these markers, is that it gives you the opportunity to blend and mix as you need to. And you don't just, like I said before, you can also do this with color pencil, and it doesn't just have to be the watercolor pencils. I have my own color pencils that I use. I use Prismacolors. I'm not sure how many of you have those, but I know some crafters do like to use color pencils for their stamping. And so if you already have color pencils and you're not quite ready to take such a dive into this investment just yet, you can just get the color lifter and try messing around with how it blends your color pencils, because it gives a really nice effect. Because I know not everyone can immediately afford to buy a whole bunch of markers, especially ones that are these expensive. And so that was another option I wanted to let you guys know about. Because when I first started using markers, I didn't really realize you could do these sorts of things. I just thought you had to have the lighter and darker versions of the markers, and that was how you shaded. But there's a lot you can do with these markers. And another way of shading or getting more color variance with fewer markers is to do something called tip to tip. And this is where you put the tips of two markers together. This lets the ink on the tips mix a little bit. So that way you can get some darker colors, but also some different tones to your color. And then all you have to do is just keep going until the other color has worn off. And this is just the beginning, just a little quick thing to show you that these markers are capable of quite a bit, and if you know how to use them, you can do amazing things with them. You just have to have the know-how. And that's what the next few videos are going to be about. I'm going to be showing you not only how to use these markers specifically, but about fundamentals of art that will help you no matter what medium you're using, whether it be color pencil, chalks, pastel, paint, watercolor. A lot of these principles apply to many areas of art. And it will just help take your stamping and crafting up a whole nother level.
And thank you for this tutorial. Thank you for helping us today, Shayla.